So good afternoon, everyone. I know we stand between you and lunch, so we'll try and keep it succinct and crisp, but interesting, and go into as much detail. Koshy has given me permission to say the following. So I'll start with a disclaimer. All your questions will be answered by him.
And you make your statements.
Indeed. So let us introduce ourselves. This is Koshy Thampy, Anjali Bansal. We represent ONDC. Koshy is the CEO of ONDC. I'm one of the early co-creators, believers, and I serve on the advisory council. We are here, obviously, to share more about what we are doing with ONDC, but I want to share a little bit of the background and the journey. So ONDC, like so many wonderful things that happen, started somewhat organically as a very collaborative effort. I'm rewinding about 2.5 years ago, first lockdown. I found myself on a government task force looking at how to use technology and digitization to solve for keeping essential supply chains running in containment zones. From there, we realized that the actual backbone of Indian commerce is our small retailer, trader, the small merchant, and largely less digitized or undigitized. So the real challenge is how to bring this vast segment of the Indian market economy into the digital ecosystem. And not do it through you cannot actually do any of this through government mandates and so on, right? So it actually has to become a technology-led solution. We then found the Beacon protocol, which is it's like the internet of commerce, if you will. So today, if you think about email, whether you're on Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Outlook, all email systems talk to each other, but all commerce systems don't talk to each other. So we have UPI in India, right? So I think India's big innovation is in creating these open systems for public digital infrastructure. I mean, all of us travel. I haven't seen any country in the world where I can transfer money to Koshy and vice versa. My sabji wala, bhaji wala, everybody, it's democratized access for payments. It has really bypassed and leapfrogged beyond the somewhat elitist debit card, credit card, the plastic that folks like us have access to, but a vast amount of Bharat does not. So today, you think about UPI, ONDC is the UPI for commerce. This is the next big leap forward. So fast forward from where we started, and then Koshy came on board, and he really gave the shape and momentum and a lot of leadership. And now I'm going to turn it over to Koshy to share with us where we stand on ONDC today.
Thank you. Just picking up from what Anjali started, not just today, but she was a part of the whole team, started the idea of ONDC about a couple of years ago. You know, she explained to you how internet works, which we all know. You know, but just I'm to help you break the mental model of how digital commerce happened and take us back to the original democratic vision of internet. Let's do a thought experiment. Let's imagine that when Tim Lee developed HTTP, instead of making it to an open foundation for everybody to talk to everybody, communicate with each other, if you had created a closed loop, probably there would have been one HTTP, one ATTP, one BTTP, and probably we would have been all paying $50 each to access that. Whereas he said, let the foundation be open for everybody to use, let the business get built on the top of it. So it grew up as a democratic place. Take this one step forward. Today, if you want to create a HTML page, a web page, web portal, whatever you call it, you don't go and say, let me go and register to Chrome, let me go and register to Edge, let me go and register to, because Edge has more people, Chrome has less people. You don't even think any such things. You say that I can make my content visible using this protocol, and anybody who has the ability to read this protocol can read me. I'm equally discoverable. And what is going to make me stand apart is what I have to offer, not I have a friend who has a captive set of users. which is something that we are all very familiar with. Whereas when it comes to digital commerce, that's not the way it is. So there are some end-to-end solutions, doing fantastic work, and we are all very, very active users of that. But the problem with that kind of a model is that it is the network effect will lead to concentration in that sector, irrespective of whatever good or bad they are doing. So this is a challenge the whole world is facing. Whether in US or whether in Europe or whether in China, whether in India, all of us have this challenge of the natural propensity of closed-loop network to be self-concentrating, which essentially would sort of take away, limits the opportunity for a larger cross-section of participants. Because when you have such entities in the middle, which is fine, but the business to a great extent will be determined by what they think is the right thing to do. They will tell each of the sellers that I'll tell you what to do, whom to sell, I will do the analysis and give you the information, which is all fine. But in that sense, each of the businesses either follow this broader agenda which is set by somebody, or you're not there at all. While we are all sitting, the crowd of people sitting here are all active users, but we are a minority. The user in the digital commerce today, e-commerce is only, the penetration only 7% in the user side, and at the supply side it is less than a percentage. Because it's like saying that supposing in the hotel industry we only had 5-star hotel. There will be a lot of people who like 5-star hotel, there will be a lot of 5-star hotels, but only, it is matching a certain requirement with a certain supply. Whereas a true market is somewhere everybody should have the equal opportunity to present what they are good at, and then achieve a market share based on what they offer, not any other means. So that doesn't mean that it's democratic, doesn't mean that everybody will get equal market share. No. I may do exceptionally well, somebody else may do exceptionally bad. But it seems everybody has an equal opportunity. So with this idea, we started shaping this ONDC, and just as Anjali promised you, then let me just quickly update you where we are and what we are going to do. Is that we are now demonstrated that it is working. So what we did is we created a pilot with some seller application, some buyer application, some buyers, and a limited set of buyers. Essentially, we told all the merchants, say, bring your friends and relatives and get used to them, get used to doing in this new world. So we had been able to do around 65 cities were there. And we are all in a very, very active and aggressive mode, getting ourselves ready for this network to be available to everybody in the country in the next few months. So the point I want to say is that we have been able to demonstrate that it works, and we are getting a significant traction of the industry participants to be to be a part of it. We have more than 350 entities as of today under different stages of integration. So what we thought was we could come here and share with you that this is real and it is really growing. And some of you might be already aware and would have started the early steps. Some of you may not have. It's like a call of action. And also, when you have a call of action, I'm sure that there will be some of you may have some questions. So that's why both of us are here. She being a very, very successful investor, she has an outside-in view of how the business looks at it. And I have an inside view out because I'm fully involved in getting things done. So feel free to ask any questions, and I will ask Anjali to give, from an outside-in point of view, some more inputs on how we could proceed on this.
Great. So, as Koshy mentioned, I'll take an outside-in view a little bit. Yes, please. Somebody has a question. And we can keep this interactive, by the way. Okay, fine. So, so I'll just say two things here. One is think about it as a highway. Right? If you want to drive, and if you have a car, you go get a car or a scooter or a bus or a truck. You don't think about, I have to first build a highway to drive on it, to go from point A to point B. So if your business is the equivalent of the vehicle, ONDC is the highway that can connect various destinations and sources, and your vehicle or your business can drive on that highway. The highway is a public utility. It does not belong to one vehicle operator or a group of vehicle operators, right? So think about ONDC as the highway, much like UPI today, we kind of take it for granted, right? If you're starting a business, you no longer have to think about creating a payment solution for your business. You just plug into the API for UPI, and you have a ready payment solution. So ONDC in its final state will be like that. The underlying protocol, which is the beacon protocol, is designed to be like that. The layers that are being technology layers, and we'll stop talking tech in a minute, so forgive me. But it's important to understand that this is actually a technology-based network and an underlying protocol that is meant to be interoperable. So any business can talk to any business, like I mentioned, emails. And it is unbundled. So you can, as a buyer or a seller, pick and choose who you want to do business with. It does not all come together. That said, there will be clusters that develop, and you will have applications. And from the ONDC point of view, we are welcoming all participants. In fact, we are holding continuous grand challenges, hackathons for technology developers to build apps. Again, I go back to, remember UPI? UPI had a reference app called Bheem. And today, you have any number of businesses. And as an investor, I have seen the explosion of business models. And I say explosion in a positive sense. Proliferation in the number of business models that have emerged and grown much faster because they had the digital rails or the highway of UPI to drive on. So ONDC is like that for commerce. We hope it will do three things. It is designed to do three things. It is designed to reach the remotest corner of India and bring your remotest small business, buyer or seller, could be home-based business, could be a kirana, could be a group of artisans or an FPO, farmer producer organization, so absolutely remotest corner of India, but also your small shopkeepers in urban areas, also your MSMEs. So it is designed to bring everybody in. It is, by definition, not keeping anybody out. Two, it is meant to create not a closed system, but an open system. It is not a platform. It's a network. You can build a platform on it, if you like. And three, it is meant to become quite as all-pervasive as we think about the internet or UPI. This is India's big innovation and contribution to the world, much like we have done with whether it is Aadhaar, India Stack, UPI, and now ONDC. So that's what ONDC is. It's very powerful. We are super excited. We know a lot of new business models will come from here. It will bring the next big leap forward. We call it organized and unorganized sector, and I was properly told off by one of our advisory board at that time members that don't call unorganized. It's not organized or unorganized. It is just self-organized. So we are a nation of entrepreneurs and shopkeepers, if you will. And this is meant to provide the tools to enable every shopkeeper, every micro-entrepreneur to ride the digital highway. Very, very powerful. As investors, we are super excited.
That's great. I think because they're all business people who have already might have some questions, and I think we will rather leave it as interactive. And if you could sort of share the mic with our participants.
Yes. Sir, I represent a company which is Modernic Lifestyle. We have got two undergarment brands. One is Enamer and one is Dixie. Now, the different thing is Enamer is a slightly premium brand. We've got our own website and we've also been on the e-commerce platforms. We've also seen how they can throttle us, and we've been through that. We've increased 7x business. But we would like to get on a non-controversial platform. We would like to grow from there. And we've got 5,000, 7,000 retailers selling. On the Dixie side, we've got 1,100 distributors and 160,000 outlets that we touch. How could we use the ONDC platform to get this open and trade easily and see to it that it reaches the smallest customer in the Tier 4 city, who is my Dixie customer, as well as the Tier 1 city, which is my Enamer customer?
Well, answer to all of them is there. So the only thing, since you have in your mind wants to be a part of it, just send a mail to team, T-E-A-M, @ondc.org. Every Tuesday, we arrange a session for people like you, and your team, who want to have a lot of detailing questions. It will run about 1.5 hours. After that, most of them will decide to get moving. So then we have a hand-holding mechanism to help them to go.
Sir, I attended that. Now I want to know whether we could individually adapt it without having any technology, or will we need a technology partner to onboard onto
See,
ONDC?
like I said, now, there are two options. Okay, one is that you could work with an aggregator, or you could get your own IT system. I mean, if you have a decent IT team, tell them to make your platform ONDC protocol compliant.
Okay.
Both are equally possible. Probably your team could sort of evaluate which is more convenient and comfortable. But both will work equally well. Because irrespective of how you come, you still have the visibility to all the buyers brought from all the buying platform.
Yep.
So it won't, from your exposure, it won't make any difference at all. It's only your operational convenience.
All right. Okay. Thank you, sir.
And I was walking around outside, I saw a lot of new tech, retail tech companies. So we are hoping, I'm assuming actually, I'm assuming that many of them will actually solve for exactly this problem. How to enable currently offline or low on the digitization curve businesses, big or small, to access ONDC.
If I again take the example from how people create web pages, there are some of them may create their own HTML page. Some of if the requirement is not so complex, they may use some standard thing like WordPress or equivalent of that. That's what she was saying. There are many tech companies may give as a technology service provider. Some may say that, okay, I want an SI to come because I have, I don't want to do anything myself. I want to have a larger leap, keep the IT as an outsourced one. All this model work without any difference. It's only question, like I said, operational convenience.
Hi, I am Nayan from Total Sports and Fitness. My question is like, in UPI, there is a BEAM app, maybe created by the government or the organization, and there are other various apps wherein, like PhonePe or GPay, and which are the privately created apps. So, does ONDC have some app wherein normal directly can log in and then upload the products or something like that? A consumer directly can.
See, originally, I'll tell you, one of the thoughts when Beam was launched, because it's a completely new idea. So they want to have a reference app. The intention was not to become the only app. So they consciously encourage a broader participation. I mean, at the same time, finally, there's only one item, money. Whereas when it comes to the commerce, there are thousands of items. So variety of platforms would come. So it is practically impossible to have one app to do all these things. Okay, so our idea is people like you, entrepreneurial people, will either for their own products or for others will bring variety of things. Something may be relevant for garment, something may be relevant for something else. So what we have done is we have provided we provided the protocol, the documentation, and also a lot of SDKs. Supposing, like he was explaining, some people have a good IT team so that they don't end up rediscovering. We are giving the reference apps to work on it and make their own. But we are not running an app for people to upload. Because practically in that case, we'll have to do for everything. Because like you would see, from garments to mobility to tourism to tickets to everything. That's how it will go.
And we are already starting to onboard buyer apps and seller apps that will do exactly what you're saying. That there will be the initial reference apps and they will continue to develop, of course.
As of today, there are about 300 entities who are under various stages of integration with both buyer side and the seller side.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Myself is Santosh from Hyderabad, Retail Solutions, E-Retail Cybertech Private Limited. We are also working on a seller apps here. UPI point of view, as you mentioned, as a UPI point of view, it is very much successful because there is no commission or charges on here, right? And this e-commerce platform point of view, how it is going to be benefit to the sellers and buyers point of view? What kind of more benefits? Like without getting any benefits, like in a commission or anything, how it going to be more successful are you expecting?
Let me just add a couple of things. I mean, I will ask Anjali. See, thing is, UPI did not succeed because there's no commission.
Okay.
Because it added value. It enabled a lot of things. And initially there were some small charges. It would have market driven and the government decided that to get a broad adoption, they'll give it away for some time. Mm-hmm. But here, I mean, like we said, there's only one item, one SKU, which is money. Whereas here, we expect different kinds of people coming together. And whenever some seller application will be focused only on that kind of client. So the cost associated with is going to be substantially lower. So, but there has to be some, people who are doing some work will have to have some return, a fair return. Not a return which is based on some captive control that you have, but based on the value that is being added. So we expect seller platforms having their own returns happening. We don't even determine any commission structure at all. It is left to the market. And we are seeing in the market, healthy trends are shaping up.
So, in a government organization point of view, sir, like an example, the packed products, there is some GST is applying, like in a grocery segment point of view. Non-packed, something as different part here. As you're expecting in the ONDC, you're working on a more on lower level or tier 3 or tier 4, lower level, like in kirana stores you're expecting. Like there, most of the cases non-packed. So how you're going to be there, they're going to supply to the customers. Means is a non-packed also will be taken care on the here.
What did you say?
Non-packed. So
Yeah.
non-packaged. So
Yeah.
let me just clarify.
Absolutely.
It will have small retailers, which will include kiranas, but it will also have a large number of SMEs, MSMEs, and maybe big businesses also. So we are seeing a full spectrum of sellers for the most part, and it can be an unpackaged neighborhood seller and a large FMCG brand. So let me take a different sort of tack to this. Today, if you order something from your neighborhood kirana, and if he's going to send, how does he send it to you?
It is normally saying is an unpacked one because it's immediately
But
packed.
he'll put it in something, right? He'll
Yes.
put it in, hopefully not a plastic bag, he will put it in something that is a little bit more.
But most of the cases it's unbilled also, as you know that, because he's going
Right.
to give me some amount, he said, I'll pay that. But here, ONDC means everything as in a bill.
Everything
and
will be billed, which
Yeah.
is, in our view, at least my view, and this is my personal view, is a good thing. Because when things get billed, revenue is discovered, and when there is revenue that is discovered, it makes the person more credit worthy. So I know in the short term you feel there is GST and so on, but even in not the long term, but the medium term, it is actually good for the growth of the business. How will it come? It will, this is not a platform. So if you are ordering something today, the way it gets delivered today, it will get delivered that way also. What you might find though, is that in your neighborhood, and I'm taking the same neighborhood kirana example, there might be 5 guys who are got spare capacity, who have got that chotu or the bacha to send it over, the runners. So somebody might develop a runner service. So new entrepreneurial models could develop. So that's actually the exciting piece. You had a question here. Maybe should we take a couple of questions and respond together? Yeah.
She had a question. She was looking.
Hello, sir. This is Monal here. So one question was, well, this is an ecosystem, I think, which is being built, right? How will the trust and dispute resolutions? I ordered something, the guy sent something else, right? Who owns that? How do you manage those things in such a complex? Because assuming Enter India picks it up, large thing, right? So yeah.
So we'll hold that question, the lady here.
Because I have a long answer for that.
Very important question.
Yeah, I think I'll just build on Monal's question. I'm from ThoughtWorks as well. Very similar lines. How does the network provide assurance in terms of quality of service on the seller side, in terms of quality of experience on the customer side, right? So, because he equated it to an open network and also a highway. So, what does the network do to bring that assurance to that?
I mean, this is a question that will get asked to me a lot of times. And unfortunately, I have to give a very long answer. Because we are trying to change the mental model of how things work. Okay. So first and foremost, I'll take a very strong point of view. Say that when you say consumer experience starts when I decide to buy. It's not when I have a return to give. Of course, it's important. Like, how many out of 100 buys, I may have 1 or 2 returns, 3 returns. Correct? So it's like the life insurance. We all take one, not expecting to die tomorrow. But in case it happens, we want that. So I'll come to that later. But first thing we need to understand is that consumer experience starts with when you decide to buy. And if you're assuming that I am your agent as a buyer, I will look after your interest. But the current models does not encourage me to do that. Current model will, if I have a very, very harsh way of saying, will try to say that I have a set of captive users who had been enticed to be my exclusive users. And then I'll tell the seller, boss, I have this 100 million people, I can sell anything to them. You give me, based on the kind of incentive that you give me, I will give it to him, give it to her. From that model, there's nothing wrong. That's one business model. In that one, my an interest would be to have as few as large brands, because they will all have large advertising budget. If everybody, if I just take an example, if everybody from Jammu Kashmir to Trivandrum wear only Lacoste t-shirt, I have nothing against, I do wear that. That's the easiest thing to do. So essentially the idea is to shape the consumers to push something that I want to push, not to help you to buy what is there. So one first thing that the ONDC brings trust and confidence, buyer application will behave as a buyer's agent, will help them to choose what is good for that person, because he has no loyalty to any sellers. His loyalty is only to the buyer. That is level one. Second, we have to look at this from, when you're trying to change the mental model, you have to look at multiple ways. Second thing is, if you look at, let's say, look at the hotel industry. We have 5-star hotels, 2-star hotel, 1-star hotel, all of them. A market should have all kinds of suppliers available for all kinds of buyers. For example, I go to a 5-star hotel, I pay 300 rupees for a chai, and if I do like this, they'll change the coffee. Go to the dabba wala, he'll say, sir, 25 rupees ke ye milte hai, aap chahiye to aap le lijiye. Both need to coexist. So we need to have a market which is allowing different sellers with different kind of product, with different quality and different SLAs to meet the requirement of the different kinds of buyers. Today, if you look at the e-commerce, is only catering the upper 5% of our society. You and I all unfortunately belong to that, so we are used to that. We may continue to do that. Now, again, even in the unbundled model ONDC, it is very much possible. Let's take one example. Let's say that I am a buyer application. I'm just using the name only for references, etc. Let's say HDFC Bank. It's a very premium bank. They say that all my clients are premium clients. So I'm going to be their agents. I'm not representing them. I'm just making an example. They will say that when a buy request, when I am a bank customer, so I went and say I want to have a mobile phone or something, he will broadcast to the network saying that my condition is that I will give you the money 100% only 30 days later when my consumer has no complaint. That's the same thing even the today's platforms too. At the end of it, no platforms are spending in their pocket. Seller on record is the seller, not the platform. Rule is very clear. But they are able to control the behavior of the sellers by means of a contract and the money, which may still continue. So they will broadcast. So a set of sellers may say that I'm fine with that. Some sellers say it is not, I'm not fine with that. So I will not participate in this. So nobody is forcing any seller to participate. So you have the same control remaining there. Sometimes some sellers will say, I'm a discount store, no return policy, upfront. If you like it, you take it. So what we are saying is this platform enables such things to happen. The next round, the next point of view to look at, what is ONDC doing about it? Are I just creating a free for all? No. First is when any participant want to be either seller platform or a buyer platform, we do some due diligence on them. Say that you're going to be a part of a community. We expect certain behavior. We want to know who you are. Establish who you are. Sign an agreement with us to comply to the rules of the game. Demonstrate that your application can meet the protocol requirement by testing and get third-party tested. And then participate in this market. And also the agreement says any community rules that is presently there and in future we will collectively decide will be binding on any participant. And then there is an active way in which this behavior is monitored by community together. And if there is misbehavior, it could mean penalties, it could mean suspension, it could mean kicking out, anything. Because we are a community and we don't, it's like any club. Let's say you might be a member of some club. There are some rules. Now if you don't behave that, what do? They kick you out. Because of that, this is also a self-correcting model. What do you mean by self-correcting model? As I said, now buyer applications are loyal only to the buyers. if their buyer will go and complain to the buyer application, correct no? And if they don't get a good response, they'll really howl. Because they have no loyalty to the sellers. And ONDC, in addition to this, is going to create network-wide rating and reputation. Network-wide online dispute resolution mechanism, all these things. And it will be published that this seller application had 150 grievances in the last 1 month, out of which 130 got resolved, 20 went into dispute. These are all public information. So now think like you are setting up a seller platform with 1,000 sellers. Would you like to mess up your reputation? You know, after that, no buyer, that buyer will say, "Usse se mat le lo." So since it is no more somebody who has humongous control of their population, buyer or seller, their incentive to behave is even much stronger. So that way, this is a much strong self-correcting model than the other way. I mean, I was just trying to help you to, shake your mind. Because at the end of it, this is how it works. So you would see, today if you look at 90% of the market is physical, no? Is any entity who is taking care of everything from supplier to hell? There is a mechanism to resolve these issues. Same way in the digital world it will resolve. So in that way, the digital world eventually will become one more ways of doing transaction. It is not going to be anybody's exclusive agenda. So in future, and that's why I say that, I will rather say e-commerce as we know today will cease to exist. It will become another way of the sellers will establish their brand, their credibility, their reputation, everything. And this will be one more way in which they will make their product available to the customers. Just like today, everybody has a website. Similarly, tomorrow, everybody will be able to, in a few years' time, will be able to offer their product through this wide network as a standard option. And the variety of buyer application based on their kind of clients. Sometimes it will be banks. Bank will say, I'm going to offer e-commerce to my clients. Telcos will say, okay, I'm going to help them buy. So it will become a way in which we will transact in the field of commerce.
So I'm going to give sort of 2 or 3 examples to this on trust and assurance. One is when you go to, and Koshy mentioned this, when you go to a physical market, let's say you go to a mall. You have all kinds of shops in the mall. You go to shops either because you know the brand and you trust the brand, or they're offering you a great deal. So you'll take a risk on that product even if you don't know the brand because it's a great deal, and they'll say, hey, it's on sale, you buy it, there's no return. So those are informed choices that the buyer is making. The buyer will continue to make informed choices through ONDC also. The network is not going to start making choices for the buyer. Similarly, the seller will decide what price they want to sell something at. Could be a good, could be a service. Could be a provider of tempo services, right, and intracity trade. No one's kind of telling them what should be their service level agreement, what should be the pricing. That's the seller's call, and there will be a market for whatever they're offering. There'll be a buyer for it. So that's one. So today on what is the difference that UPI has made? You don't have to think about, oh, do I have cash? How do I pay an individual? I can pay a business, but a business can't pay me. How do individuals trade? How do small businesses, you can't pay small businesses through credit card without going through a credit card mechanism. It's made it seamless. So that's what ONDC will do. So it'll create that underlying layer of communication. And the example I like to use is, can a textile manufacturer in Ludhiana now be able to source a spare part for their machinery from, say, Nashik, without having to go through 6 layers, lots of phone calls, trying to figure out and stitch together all the pieces, because ONDC will have that discoverability. They will be able to find a supplier of the spare part. The spare part provider will have some rating associated because there will be a system-wide rating system. There'll be a logistics company, small, large, who knows, right? So it depends on what you want to pay, what kind of service you want. That's the market mechanism at work.
And each of the component will be, what she said is very important, will be handled by the agencies who are very specialized. And we will find a way to stitch together. I mean, this happens in every business. Let me just add one point. We all know the telecom business. Initially, each of the telecom companies set up their tower, everything their own. They try to catch you by your number. Now they realize it doesn't make sense to everybody to have over-investment in infrastructure, which is half-lying waste. Today, if I make a telephone call from Airtel, it may, or she does from Vodafone, it goes to the same tower. Why? It makes sense to share. And protocol enable a seamless integration. So
But
that kind of specialization will drive. And the specialized party will survive only if what they're offering, specialized offering is relevant.
There are companies here today, by the way, that are developing assurance layers to provide the backing for trust. It's not sort of defined by ONDC per se, but they are the ones building the technology for it. And it will become a product that's available to you. So as a buyer, as a merchant, small, medium, large, whatever, merchant on the network, they can choose to use, say, a GoQuick, for example, and say, now we will provide assurance. So if you've got the seal of good housekeeping, then maybe you can charge more. So again, informed choices being made by market participants.
And possibly is throw at them. Let's think about a cake maker from Bandra. Yes. Today, they only give it to their neighborhood. Tomorrow they realize, hey, Christmas time there's a lot of demand, potential demand in Delhi. Because there are a lot of this people, Bandra people who are now in Delhi, including me. So, if I try to go to today, I have to tie up a logistics, it's a pain. So now, initially I say, okay, I don't know how many is there. Probably there are 5 orders came from Koshy, he's a good friend, so he told me this, so I want to, he's willing to pay the transport charge. So on the network, there's a logistics guy who's willing to do. After some time, say, hey, there seems to be a lot of interest. Let me test out the market during Christmas time. So I want to buy warehouse as a service. Somebody is offering warehouse as a service. Let me get a logistics company who's also in the net because he's providing a service saying that he will transfer every week 100 kg to that warehouse. And then, so that you get economies of scale of bulk selling, and you have a hyper-local delivery local who will give it to all the houses in Green Park. You know, they can test it out. Today, you will not be able to test it out in the current model because otherwise, huge investment. So it is opening up humongous business opportunities for small and micro enterprises to get the same benefits of this infrastructure, which today is only available only people with deep pockets. So these are the way the market is, the commerce is going to change. You know, in fact, since I had the old experience, with my gray hair, I remember the capital market changing. So we said when the whole thing about digital capital market came, everybody said, Hindustan mein nahi chalega. But that time, you know what is when the famous Harshad Mehta time, the maximum trade used to happen was 400 crore. The corner wala broker will do so much today. It's expanded opportunities all across. Participation become very, very broad-based. Similarly, she explained about the UPI. The participation became very broad-based. Today, UPI, earlier the digital transaction in our country used to something like 250 million transactions a month. And our biggest expectation that in 4 years' time we will double it. Today we are doing 7 billion transactions a month. Because the rules of the game changed. That is a transformation we are going to see in commerce. So you need to shake out your mental models and say that abhi kaise kara, that we want everything like that. That's not the way. It is going to be just changing. The commerce, the buying and the selling and the way you do business will undergo a change.
So we all know when you build highways, economic activity grows. So this is the digital highway. So economic activity will grow.
Hi, I have just last 2 quick questions. I could understand.
Can we make it a very quick question?
Sure.
And we'll probably have a very quick answer as well, hopefully.
Sure.
Thank you.
So what I could understand, it is not only B2C, it would be B2B and as well as B2B2C also, one. Second, you said those who have the infra, they can use their own. If they don't have, they can go to the aggregator. So is the aggregator also, is there a choice of aggregators also? And there would be more aggregators you would be getting into it?
This is all about choice, by the way. We want to have multiple providers for every single service, every single category on ONDC. It's just a matter of, I keep saying this, we hope to see an explosion of business models, a proliferation of new businesses, whether it's a assurance service or a logistics service, or a rating service, or a buyer of cakes, or a seller of cakes.
Or a seller aggregator.
Or an aggregator.
Yeah, I just rephrase. I'm talking about the infra aggregator,
Yeah.
not about the buyer
Oh,
seller.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Aggregators,
Even
yeah.
infra. So assurance is infra.
Yeah, correct.
Payment is infra. So yeah, absolutely.
As of today, even the pure aggregator infra providing, more than 100 of them under various stages of integration. 5 of them are already live. In fact, to demonstrate that it works in small, all the in the pilot that we did, there are 5, all of them are really startups. You know, we wanted to show it works because big guys can do by themselves. You don't need any help. But we wanted to demonstrate, so we started in our pilot in the seller aggregators, actually 2 of them are pure startup, 2 of them are, say, POS providers, which also is a small business. And we started with that, with grocery and food, which is also not an easy thing at the last mile. Because we want to demonstrate, because big will happen by itself.
We actually have startups coming who are digitizing shop fronts. I go back to my sort of Ludhiana to Nashik trade example. We want to see service providers who are digitized service providers all along the value chain, all along the supply chain. I'm going to have to take your leave, sadly, so maybe we can bring this to a close.
Yeah. Thank you. And we can be in touch with us. We'll be happy to answer
I will
any
volunteer
questions.
Koshy. Koshy is not running away, so please absolutely catch him after the session for more questions and more information. And please bring all your businesses online onto ONDC.